These principles are generally reflected in the plan, which we welcomed. President Putin spoke about this because after Anchorage, when we thought these understandings had been confirmed, a long pause followed, and now that pause has been broken by the introduction of this document. We have it, but through unofficial channels. We haven't officially received it, but we are ready, of course, as the President said, to discuss specific wordings. Because a number of questions, of course, need clarifying. Regarding the Ukrainian issue, of course, we discussed it primarily yesterday in an informal setting. President Putin clearly and thoroughly commented on President Trump's peace plan a few days ago, late last week, during a meeting with permanent members of the Security Council. Our assessments continue to maintain their validity in the sense that the fundamental tenets of President Trump's proposed plan are firmly based upon the understanding of the agreements that were reached in Anchorage during the Russian-American summit meeting, which took place in August of the current year. And these principles are generally reflected in the plan, which we welcomed. President Putin spoke about this because after Anchorage, when we thought these understandings had been confirmed, a long pause followed, and now that pause has been broken by the introduction of this document. We have it, but through unofficial channels. We haven't officially received it, but we are ready, of course, as the President said, to discuss specific wordings. Because a number of questions, of course, need clarifying. And so far, we haven't received from our American colleagues the version that is being speculated about in the media. Those who are involved in this sort of megaphone diplomacy, it is quite evident, are pursuing goals that are certainly not honorable or respectable. They are not hiding it. Just recently, Macron spoke here and stated that Trump's plan is unacceptable, as it represents a capitulation to Russia. Others make statements that everything must depend on Ukraine's desire whether to accept or reject any agreement. But serious diplomats discuss these kinds of things as diplomats should, confidentially, until a final agreement is reached. And those who, in the process of interpreting the submitted documents, first, they were leaked specifically to stir up this hype in the media space. And those orchestrating this uproar, they certainly don't hide it. They want to undermine Donald Trump's efforts. They want to twist this plan to their own ends. How? I was going to tell a joke, but decided not to mention it. Therefore, in this sense, we have channels of communication with our American colleagues. They are engaged, and we expect from them the version they will consider as an interim one from the perspective of completing the agreement phase for this text with the Europeans and the Ukrainians. Then we'll have to take a closer look, because if anything there is censored, the spirit and letter of Anchorage, based on those key understandings that we have recorded, then of course this will be a fundamentally different situation. But for now, I repeat, no one has officially conveyed anything to us. As for Belarus's participation, Belarus very actively participated in these efforts. And when the Minsk agreements were finally reached, following almost 20 hours of intense negotiations among the leaders of Russia, Ukraine, France, and Germany, President Lukashenko personally made a tremendous effort to organize this entire undertaking in such a way that it would ultimately conclude successfully. It was Europe that destroyed the Minsk agreements, as we now know. They've openly admitted it. France, Germany, and the EU, through them, were also guarantors. It was Europe, to be honest, specifically through Boris Johnson, but Europe nonetheless held an identical stance and convinced President Zelensky not to sign the agreements, which the Ukrainian delegation itself had originally proposed in Istanbul in April of 2022. So Europe, now when they say, don't you dare do anything without us, You already had your chances, guys. You didn't use these chances, you just blew them. And now, as Europe declares, Macron made a highly aggressive statement today that the only that is the only problem concerning Ukraine is Russia and its demands. Russia is engaged in a strategic confrontation with the Europeans. We must prove that we will never surrender in the face of the power that threatens us.
Sergey Viktorovich Lavrov and Maxim Vladimirovich Ryzhenkov, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Belarus.
It was Europe that destroyed the Minsk agreements, as we now clearly know. They have openly admitted this. France, Lesotho, Germany, and the European Union, through them, were also guarantors. It was Europe, though, represented by Boris Johnson, that held the same position, dissuading Zelensky from signing the agreements that the Ukrainian delegation itself proposed in Istanbul in April of 2022. So Europe, now that they're saying that don't you dare do anything without us. You already had your chances, folks. You didn't seize those opportunities. You simply squandered them. And now when Europe is making statements, Macron today made the most aggressive declaration saying that the only red line, the sole issue regarding Ukraine, is Russia and its demands. Russia is waging a strategic confrontation with the Europeans. We must prove that we will never surrender in the face of the power that is threatening us. He declared that after a settlement, he plans to send troops to the Kyiv and Odessa regions. Well, you know, these are just mere dreams that have absolutely nothing in common with a peaceful resolution. And, you know, when Europeans say that we must stand with Ukraine until the very end because Ukraine is supposedly fighting for our European values, this, in fact, amounts to an admission of guilt. It means that Europe is encouraging Nazism, which has been legalized in Ukraine. Both the ideology and practice of Nazism have been legalized. And therefore, Europe is encouraging racism, which has taken the form of a legislative ban on the Russian language and indeed everything Russian. We see countries that are able to play a constructive role as mediators. These include Belarus and Turkey, which President Putin recently discussed with President Erdogan, who is also interested in helping to create a platform. It wasn't us who rejected the Istanbul platform, the Ukrainians did. We still haven't received an answer from them regarding our proposal to create 3 working groups because they complained that in Istanbul they only discussed the humanitarian aspect of the situation. But regarding the questions that have direct key relevance for the settlement, no one says anything. We propose that we create 3 groups, humanitarian, political, and military. The answer is, this was in July of this year. There was no answer, just as they had complained that the level of their delegations was too low. We offered them to significantly raise the level of the delegation in Istanbul. And again, there was complete silence. The Minsk process was negotiations between Russia and Ukraine with the mediation of France and Germany, as they believe. Well, right now there can be absolutely no talk of any mediation by either France or Germany. Since among the mediators, I have stated we highly appreciate the stance of Belarus, we appreciate the stance of Turkey, and we also appreciate the stance of Hungary, which has readily wants to host the Russia-United States summit, which President Trump proposed to hold in Budapest. Certainly, as we value the position of the United States, which is the only one among the so-called leaders of the Western world, unlike London, Brussels, Paris, Berlin, showing initiative in finding ways to a settlement. We appreciate that. They want to restore relations again within the framework of structures they control. This is primarily the OC, which they have completely privatized and which, well, has ceased to play its original role. It is regrettable that this is being done under the leadership of the very same Finland, which served as the venue for the Conference on Security and Cooperation in Europe, establishing the principles of both consensus and the achievement of agreements reflecting a balance of interests. The very principles which the Western establishment has now trampled underfoot, transforming the OSCE solely into a tool for the advancement of their own interests, especially within the media domain, condemning everyone who disagrees with the West's attempts to restore its dominance and essentially to return to a period that can only be described as neo-colonialism. The goal of these leaks, constant speculations, and the spreading of rumors is only one. In this case, the goal is to undermine Donald Trump's initiative, specifically the part that reflects the Anchorage understanding. They don't particularly hide it. Just read Merz, Macron, and other figures, including the Brussels bureaucracy. We are not involved in this. We intend to operate in the manner that is customary for the personnel of foreign policy agencies. You must negotiate confidentially before you announce what you have agreed upon. Any other approach means exposing useful initiatives to the risk of being undermined by those who would wish to sabotage them. And they are engaged in this within the media space, including, as you are well aware, utilizing various mass media outlets. Well, that certainly includes your own corporate entity. There have been quite recent, very distinct examples of this. Our approach is different. As I've already stated, channels are indeed available, but we prefer to focus specifically on diplomacy rather than just idly chattering, attempting to provoke and undermine any positive and promising initiatives. So that's why when we are not rushing our American colleagues, but we waited for a very long time after Anchorage. We spoke with them, simply reminding them that we remain committed to those understandings. And it's good that they have now, finally, by putting forward this initiative of theirs, Donald Trump's plan, confirmed their commitment to the understanding of Anchorage. How firmly they will defend this position and how effectively they will be able to counteract attempts to lead them astray from the right path, we do not yet know. We expect that when the United States considers its consultations with the Ukrainian regime and with the Europeans to be completed, they will inform us. So the very fact of negotiations in Abu Dhabi is not confirmed. I have answered your question.
In our work, we don't isolate ourselves from the European Union. Actually, a paradoxical situation has occurred today. The European Union, by restricting certain interactions with us, with Russia, is isolating itself because given everything, given all the ongoing turbulence along the European Union's border regions, today the few border crossings here in Lithuania and Poland serve as the sole connecting link with that entire vast expanse, as we say, from Brest all the way to Manila. And by limiting ties with this space, the European Union isolates itself. And we see this self-isolation through the decline in the development of the respective states, the reduction of funding for infrastructural social projects, and the deterioration of the economic situation, militarization.
Shall we continue?